Today I thought I'd discuss a topic, what I'd call the primordial life cycle. And what I mean by that, so essentially, I believe life is on a circular timeline or on a circular line rather than the typical linear perspective that we see today. Now, the common concept, the main concept of today is that, life is just from start to finish on a straight line. That's why I say a linear line, just from start to finish, just on a straight line. There's a start and an end, and that's it. There's nothing else. Where, however, life in general, not just from a personal, individual perspective, life and nature in general is circular. Time is circular, should I say. Time isn't linear, where it's just start to end with a sell-by date. I believe life or time is circular. And by circular, I mean it repeats itself. It comes back around again and repeats or reincarnate, however, you like to say it and perceive it. But it all means the same thing, right? And time repeats constantly. And you see this if you look into history, nature, and life in general. And history is, when I realised looking into history, it's just a load of patterns repeating itself. It's just patterns repeating itself. You see the same occurrence happen again and again. Even if you want to dive into religion, right? Many religions, mainly the pagan religions, or the polytheistic, shall I say, the reincarnation aspect, right? Life repeating itself and continuing. But also you look at a good example, I believe, to be had or be given is the Tibetan Wheel of Life. The Tibetan Wheel of Life, it's in the name Wheel of Life, but, it's in a circular shape and it shows life repeating itself in samsara unless you escape it. But it shows, the repetitive nature and scale of life and nature in general. You can't escape nature. This is just how nature works. And then, even in the previous video I made talking about Plato's discussion on mortality, I was like, immortality. Our soul is eternal, and I believe in reincarnation through descendants, through the blood. So, again, life isn't just, you see the typical phrase, you only get one shot at life, you only live once. In this life, yes, but you have many lives through reincarnation, through your descendants and ancestors. And then we look at history, as I previously stated. History is a bunch of patterns repeating itself. History repeats. History always repeats. And I'm sure, most of you could agree with that. History repeats. Look at empires. They all rise and fall. No empires lasted forever. And yeah, the point we can even go down in terms of the human life is strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men, etc., etc. That's a cycle. Again, that is a pattern that's been repeated probably since the dawn of time, but more now we're seeing hard times, weak men. You even look at guys like Napoleon and Alexander. There's always, will be someone from, that a great figure. Maybe that's, not too well known and rises up and sort of rallies a nation and is sort of like a god on earth, an eternal god for the nation, an eternal hero, should I say. There always seems, even with repeated patterns like I was going on about, you can see it with figures and humans. You have your Napoleonic figure, your Julius Caesar, your Alexander the Great. These guys, even Genghis Khan, these guys rise up and for their nations and for history, they put a big stamp. There's always this one person, maybe let's say every 300 years or so, every 300 years, there's possibly this one person that will rise up and, completely change the course of history, or not change the course of history, but put their stamp on history. One man thriving in a nation, reigning up a nation, and is the definition of Nietzsche's Übermensch, the Superman, literally a god on earth. We'll get that every 300 years. A big war. There's a spiritual warfare, but there's also the physical. And look at the battles. A lot of them fall for the same reason, and it's repeated. And then, to sort of win the war, in my opinion, is for your message to transcend beyond the war. And, you know, beyond your generations, is for the message to carry on. That's a true victory in war. And the same patterns happen in war. The victor is the one that gets to tell the message and gets to write the history of the war. We never get to hear the other side, rarely. Or if you do, it's very minuscule. And, I mean, going back to the point, you even see in the individualistic side of things, you see the patterns of certain people come about every era or so. There will be that it's more from an archetype. It's like that. It's an archetype, if that makes sense. The archetype sort of repeats, and you can sort of see life. It's just not a straight line. And these guys come. It could be from different corners of the globe, but they're like the same type of similar archetype, which could be a divine interpretation. There could be a personification of a certain god, whether it's Odin, could be Vishnu, Thor, you know, it could be anyone. And I believe it's a very interesting perspective, and you know, it does perceive life, in my opinion, to be in a circle, or time is circular. It does perceive it to be circular, and that ultimately I believe how nature works. Just from reading history and looking into nature and just trying to understand nature to our own perception, that it constantly is a recycling pattern. So yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts, and thank you for watching.